Hi and welcome to Coach Jude at Rangitoto. In today's episode I'm going to be talking about willpower. So if you think that lack of willpower is stopping you reaching your goals, this is the one for you. I'm going to show you how to begin to maximise your willpower, as well as how to use it as efficiently as possible so you never run out. Sounds good? Let's get to it. Whenever people discover that I've lost £100, the first thing they typically comment on is that I must have an awful lot of willpower and discipline. There's an underlying presumption that to make any sort of change of this scale, you need to constantly battle with yourself to prevent yourself from doing what you really want to do. Now, if you're in this place, don't forget to check out the link below to my free comprehensive guide to kickstarting your weight loss. You just might find this really helpful in giving you a whole new perspective. Now, if I innately had loads of willpower and discipline, what I'd like to know is where the heck it was for the 25 years that I was morbidly obese, or where did it magically appear from? The reality is that my willpower hasn't really changed very much at all. Instead, what I was able to do was to create an environment where I needed little or no willpower most of the time. And you can do the same. The first step is in working out when you do need your willpower, when you don't need your willpower, and when it goes completely AWOL. Now, obviously we're all different, but in general, we tend not to need willpower when we're doing something that we want to do, and we tend to run out towards the end of the day. But don't take my word for it. Why don't you monitor yourself for a couple of days so you get the real picture of what's happening with you, and then you can use this knowledge to make the best decisions that will support you reaching your goals. Before I go any further, I need to address the elephant in the room. Essentially, there are two of each of us. You know what I'm talking about. The voice in your head that tells you you really want to go for a walk, but at the same time, that other whiny voice that says you're too tired, you've had a hard day, and you want to relax on the couch. Sound familiar? This is the two parts of your brain that are responsible for controlling your behaviour in action. In the middle of the brain is the more primitive or limbic region. I like to think of this as my Mr. Hulk. It tends to be much more impulsive and is the voice that will be telling you to have that piece of cake, that cheeky chocolate, or that extra glass of wine because you deserve it. The prefrontal cortex, which is at the front of the brain, this is much more sophisticated and is able to balance the benefits and the consequences of our choices. I tend to think of this as my Mr. Spock or my Vulcan mode. And this voice will be telling you you'd much rather fit into those cute jeans than to consume those extra calories. To ensure that Mr. Spock is in control most of the time, you need to look at working on strengthening your prefrontal cortex, essentially increasing the amount of willpower you have, creating an environment where you really don't need much willpower at all, or quietening or weakening the more primitive parts of your brain. Now, this is a huge topic, and so in this episode I'm just going to concentrate on creating an environment where you can maximise the efficiency of your willpower. Over the coming months I'll be coming back to willpower, so check back regularly or subscribe to ensure that you don't miss out. To create a positive environment where you're thriving and both of your minds are working or singing from the same hymn sheet requires you to do work on your body, your mind and the environment. Let's start with the body. The first thing to realise is your willpower is going to be in pretty short supply if you're stressed, tired or consuming alcohol. This was a place I inhabited pretty much 24/7 when this photograph was taken. It wasn't a great place. And these three create a vicious cycle. I was stressed, so that I drank alcohol to deal with the stress, and then I didn't sleep well, so that created more stress, and so on. The first thing to start to prioritise is your sleep. We all need about 7 to 9 hours sleep a night. Now, I know we've all got busy lives, but trying to fit our sleep in around our lives is not the best strategy. You need to prioritise your sleep. We all know what it feels like when we get a great night's sleep. It feels amazing. So if this is something that you're really struggling with, please get some help. Maybe talk to your doctor and get some advice. But whatever you do, make a commitment to yourself to move towards a better place. Right up there with being tired is being stressed. Now, not only can stress affect your ability to sleep, it actually puts the Hulk mode firmly in charge. Now, I know reducing or managing your stress isn't easy, but there are things that you can do. The way things are at the moment does not dictate how they need to be in the future. Focus on what you can do, not what you can't. And be kind to yourself, like you'd be kind to a friend. Don't put yourself under more pressure, which creates more stress. Instead, try to make your life as easy as possible. Lastly, drinking alcohol is a major disruptor of our sleep. Plus, it really impairs our decision making big time. I reckon I could write a book about all the poor decisions I made while I was under the influence. Now, we often use alcohol as a way of managing our stress, but it really doesn't work very effectively. In fact, it makes it worse. Things that do help are meditation, exercise and support from family and friends. Knowing that you are not alone helps hugely, as does changing the way that you respond to stress. We need to accept that we can't control much of what happens in our lives, but we do get to choose how we respond, and that's where the magic can happen. Now, I know there's a lot to take in this section, and you might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed. That's okay. Remember that to make a difference, you don't have to be perfect. To get the results that you want, you just have to start heading in the right direction and recognising which behaviours are taking you off track. Now let's look at a number of ways that you can create an environment where you either need no willpower or you need much less of it. In this section, I'm going to share some of my strategies that really worked for me, but this is just to get your creative juices flowing so that you come up with some killer ideas of your own that really work. But first off, let's be aware that most of us suffer from a condition which I call see food, eat food. Now, if I could develop a set of spectacles that allowed me only to see food that nourished my body, boy would I be cooking with gas. But until that point, we have to get much more creative about hiding it. So a simple, honest strategy is to put those tempting foods at the back of the fridge or the back of the pantry. That really does work. Let me share a practical example for you about how I managed my willpower. Prior to losing my weight, I would often go over to the hospital canteen for my lunch because I hadn't been bothered to make myself a packed lunch. Now, on the menu at the hospital canteen, there were always chips, and I love chips. So as soon as I saw them, the battle was lost and I would have them every single day. Now, as I talked about in my transformation journey though, one of my key success factors was planning all my meals in advance. This meant that I always had a delicious packed lunch with me. Now, the key thing to note here is it was delicious. It was something that I really enjoyed and was never tempted to leave it in the fridge and walk over to the canteen, which would take far more effort. Instead, I would really look forward to it all morning with great anticipation. Willpower required? Zip, nada, zilch. Round 1 to Mr. Spock. Another strategy that is really effective is avoiding that aisle in the supermarket. Instead of coming home with a bag of food that you know you will overeat. Once it's in your fridge or your pantry, it calls to you. You hear it. Eat me, eat me, eat me. You're just setting yourself up for failure if you do this sort of thing. If the food isn't in the house, it's much easier not to be tempted by it. And another strategy that helped me build exercise into my life was finding something I really enjoyed. So I turned something that I felt I should do into something that I wanted to do. Now, this was huge for me. For most of my life, I have been essentially allergic to exercise. I used to make a couch potato look like an Olympic athlete. But I truly believe that we all are much, much happier if we build movement into our lives. We really are not meant to be sedentary. Now, I hear you. You hate exercise. So did I. But instead of thinking about it as exercise, think about it as playtime. What did you really enjoy doing as a kid? Do you enjoy dancing? Most of my girlfriends do. So get dancing around the kitchen. Or another good activity is going for a walk with friends, especially in the countryside. But hey, don't go Googling adult play unless you've got a really strong disposition. But remember, if something's not working, then try something else. There's loads of different options and choices out there just waiting for you to enjoy. Now, you might think we've done quite a lot about covering how to get your mind in the right place, and you're right. But I want to end this episode with a discussion on self-compassion, because that will really take you up to the next level. I think one of the things we all struggle with is that we're human, and that means accepting that we're not perfect. We can all look back in hindsight and wonder why we did that, or even why we keep doing that. One of my superpowers, both literally and figuratively, is falling flat on my face. The secret is to be kind to yourself. Think about what you would say to a friend in a similar situation, or what that friend might say to you. Thinking that you're hopeless and will never succeed is never helpful, not least because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Instead, pick yourself up. Reflect on what's happened and what you could do differently. Let go of the past. You can't change it. Instead, use it to shape the future that you really want. So another big topic, but lots of positive things to think about and take action on. Remember, to improve your willpower and help manage it better, first concentrate on the body. Get a good night's sleep, manage your stress, and just cut back on that alcohol a bit. Create an environment where you don't see the foods that tempt you. And finally, be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. That really doesn't work. And if you need any more ideas, remember to check out the link below to my free comprehensive guide to kickstarting your weight loss. With that thought, I'll leave you. As always, I thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like this episode if you found it useful, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. And please share your progress, your triumphs and your insights. They're so valuable. Until next time, bye.